guaranteed, and the rest will be lucky draw. There are a few gift cards right here. That's $60 SG for you to actually try it out. And we want to encourage you to share best practices, and we'll try to build a community, but based on the best practices that we're working with right now. So here's the QR code again. Just give you guys a couple minutes, a couple seconds to actually scan it. So let me actually go back to the product itself. So why we built AnyGen? Because everyone has a boss, but we do not like to work for the boss and work for the tedious part. So that's why we built AnyGen. So hey, we actually can build an AI system to help you work smarter, and you should be lazier and spend more time with friends and family. That's actually how we started out as our vision. Our value proposition, or actually what makes AnyGen different, is there's three folds. One is that we do a lot focus on clarification of user intents. That's number one. Number two, on day one, we target ready to ship on the level of enterprise grade ready. And number two is that we do encourage a lot of AI-human collaboration instead of relying only on AI. So that helps with the hallucination reduction. That actually gives you a better references and results of your deliverable, which I'll showcase later. So a few highlights. One is no post-processing. We actually do want to build AnyGen so that you actually get your work done, so you don't have to edit multiple times. So it's ready to ship. And also, proactively, AI will actually understand your needs. Will actually go and ask a question about, hey, is this right, and is this what you want, and clarify for me. Just like someone, like an intern, or like someone who's actually working for you. Actually, we're trying to minimize the learning curve as well. So you can, as you can see, most of them it's in selection buttons, like multiple choices, because we do know that humans don't like open questions, but humans do like, is this right? Yes or no? Which one do you like? Check one. And also, we do understand that one frustration for a lot of users is when you use a Gen AI product or tool, you actually have to regenerate from the beginning. What we did is that we allow you to work with the minimal parts of the product so that you don't actually have to go back and say, hey, regenerate the whole thing. You can generate paragraph, generate 2 or 3 sentences. That's actually done as well. And last but not least, from the day one, we try to build it so that it's a team experience. We do allow team comments. We know that you want to work with team. We do allow very easy sharing, and we're working with multiple team members to add it on the same product. But not yet, but that's something we're working on. So that being said, there are a few cases, cases where we're proud of, such as marketing, content creation, data analysis, research, and learning, business strategy, which are some, we actually picked up 3 use cases that were shared today. Here are some of the numbers, which I know a lot of them look daunting, but really after I showcase how this is working, you'll know how efficiency or how much of a learning curve it's easy for you to pick up. So let me actually jump right started with the first case for today, which is market analysis. I know that Labubu has been pretty famous, and a lot of people are like, hey, what is this about? And can you research about it, right? So in this case, this is actually a case that we already generated, but meanwhile, I'll put this into actual product, so it'll actually run and generate. We'll actually go to the case for now, and then we'll come back when it's done. So, for example, I just want to showcase very quickly about what we did here, right? So we say, hey, I want to do analysis of Labubu, and it ran a couple cycles and came back with, hey, here are some questions. What are you trying to do? I click the button, say, hey, I want market sales, revenue data. At the end, give me a report. I'm the boss of AnyGen. So it went to work. And meanwhile, it has some questions. Right, so I go back to, hey, here's some things, hey, there are some versions I don't like, I want to add some pictures, so the final product actually came out like this. You can see there's a timeline that actually built up, some of the key numbers highlighted, so a market research done within 3 minutes. It has web search functionality, it searches over, I believe, over 1 million sites. That's easily beats someone who will do Google search for you. So that's very easily a market research. functionality. And also, as you can see here, hey, so there's some team members who are interested about how do you do this research. They left a comment, and you can comment back right here. So that's first market research case. Another case is that, hey, a lot of us work in sales. A lot of us work with lots of data. How do you work with data? So here's our value prop. Here's our case showcase of how we work with data. So we uploaded here this is dummy data. We do take pride in our privacy and data masking. So your data, we want. So we will use actually dummy data right here for the showcase. As you can see, actually say, hey, based on the best practices of pipeline and analysis, I do want you to go and use some charts to do analysis and generate a report for me on this pipeline analysis. And here it went to work. As you can see in the middle, in the middle of workflow, it generated multiple sheets. These sheets are data breakdown generated by the raw data I uploaded, so you can actually download them. And as you can see in the process, it went through funnels. And the funnels are hoverable. You can actually take a look. Oh, here's my funnel. And there are sheets. There are highlights. And there are charts. They're interactive as well. And you can always download them as a PDF or PNG. Et cetera, et cetera. A lot of good stuff there. Here, this is something we're very familiar with. This is an Excel sheet. This is an Excel sheet that actually is built in within this product right here. So you can actually interact with it. And what differentiates us from the other products out there is that you actually added those numbers. So I don't like this number. I want to make it a 2 instead of, oh sorry, this is actually a showcase, so I cannot add it in the spot. But in the one that you generate, you will be able to edit the number and change it in the form instead of actually coming and download it and change it again. All right, last but not least, here is a demonstration of how AnyGen is very versatile in terms of generating all kinds of format. As you can see, this looks like a newspaper, but it's actually generated by AnyGen. Say, hey, I want to know more about People's Park Complex. So generate something in the style of like black and white pictures or New York Times newspaper. So it generated like a textbook or newspaper style of output. And this is something totally I can share if I'm a marketing agency or someone I work with. Yeah, 1 minute. Okay, got it. So as you can see, this is very versatile in terms of output format. So let me actually go back to the cases running. Actually, I know it takes some time, so I'm just going to fill out this form right now. And here, it's actually doing the job of researching about the Google. Well, it's going to take some time to run, so I'm going to go back to this very page of QR code. So again, try it out. It's free, completely free for a period of time. And if you scan this QR code, you get a longer usage. We don't have any credits charging at this moment, so you can use it as per your like. And last but not least, we do have another winning raffle for the 50 players of tonight. Let me take a look.
Can I ask a quick question while you do that?
Yeah.
Are you guys going to run through PDPA for usage here in Singapore?
Sorry, give me 1 second. Is that?
After?
Yeah.
All right. So, do we have a Ruijie in the house? Yeah, there you go. Okay, congrats, you won $60. So, as you can see, there are multiple right here. So, sign up, use cases, and you get email. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next up, we have Tim to tell us something quite important. If you're going to use AI for work, you kind of want the AI to be deterministic. He's going to tell us something about that next. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it's been pretty hard, I think, to get AI to be generative AI to be deterministic. So yeah, I've been really looking forward to this.
All right, thank you all for having me. My name is Tim Prugar. I'm the head of product and engineering at File AI here in Singapore. By way of background, I started my career in AI and machine learning at Nextcaller, Y Combinator 2014. We were acquired by Pindrop Security, who I was fortunate enough to have bring me over to Singapore to open the Asia Pacific and Japan office. And now I'm running product and engineering at File AI. And I am hiring, so if you are an AI engineer, full stack engineer, or engineering man, come see me afterwards. So what I want to talk about this evening is what I actually think is one of the biggest challenges in all of AI right now, is making probabilistic models inherently more deterministic. The most popular and successful AI companies right now, in my rarely humble opinion, are Cursor, Lovable, Replit. Companies that fundamentally are leveraging AI to do something as good as, better as, or good enough is kind of the bar that's being pitched to. That's easier than doing it myself. That's made me able to do something I can't do. At File AI and in my career, we operate in the enterprise space, where that level of determinism is really, really, really important. So I think I'm going to talk about what File AI does, how we approach determinism, and 4 concrete things we do with real examples as you're thinking about building a startup, working somewhere like File AI, if you're working at on the enterprise side, on the buy side, of some of the things that you're probably going to think about and experience as you start working with AI. So first and foremost, we are an AI native unstructured data processing platform. We take documents, we take unstructured data, we digitize them, we process them, we suggest, classify, and extract information for for use in enterprise workflows or by enterprise AI teams. And so fundamentally in that process, the thing that's important is accuracy. McKinsey estimates that somewhere between 70 and 80% of agentic projects fail. MIT thinks it's more like 95%. I tend to side with MIT in that debate. And one of the reasons is lack of visibility, lack of accuracy, failure rates, and costs of agentic workflows. It's a really difficult problem. I highly recommend, if you've heard of the company Omni Analytics, they write beautifully about how much they've struggled with this as a company in trying to layer large language models and semantic natural language processing on top of their fundamental BI layer. So really, really impressive company. I recommend you read what they're writing. So fundamentally, the first thing that we do at File AI is we treat building agentic workflows as no different than building strong software systems. You come at it from a system design standpoint, rigorous planning and context prep. What that looks like in practice is sitting with our enterprise customers and digging into every piece of context we can get. 60% lives on the wiki, 30% in a handbook. 10%, you gotta ask this guy named Steve that used to work here, but he switched banks 2 banks ago, gathering all that information, because if you're gonna build a workflow, the agent needs that context. It needs to understand what are the bounds of the behaviors and the task you're trying to have it complete. Second thing is chunk the tasks. Again, no different than software engineering best practices, down to the smallest possible bit. It's really tempting when you start writing prompts to just jump in right away, to try to account for everything. And what you end up with is really complex, really long runtimes with a comical amount of points of failure. This is speaking from experience, not from criticism. And so what you want to do is really chunk that down. So an in real life example, one of our customer use cases is we ingest a bank statement with approximately 3,500 pages. So somewhere around, I don't know, whatever that times 20 is. I'm much better with software than mental math. Entries. We then get on an hourly basis bank statements that we have to reconcile against that, but they don't always have the same format. There's sometimes different document type. All of these processes. One of the places that we start, we built an agent that knows if an Excel file has merged rows or not. Like building down to that level, because those are the places where these things fail, where you least expect it. And also it really allows you to see around the corner on things like privacy, on things like security, on things that sometimes when you get really excited, and by we I mean I, and get over your skis a little bit with building, you forget the things that are a little less cool, that maybe came up in your second year at NUS and you've forgotten about a little bit, but that is super important when you're sitting across the table from someone at DBS. The third, evaluate rigorously. You have to be absolutely militant in how you're evaluating the performance of your models. And I'm going to talk about a few ways we do that at File AI. The first is leveraging judge LLMs. That having, again, back to chunking down to the very smallest part, thinking about just the evaluation piece. How are you using large language models to determine the success rate or the failure rate of your agents, of your processes, of the models that you're tuning and training, if that's more your business model? And also using some sort of proxy as accuracy. So I think one of the number one things that I'm hearing over and over again when I talk to enterprise customers is where are the confidence scores? Where are the confidence scores? Where are the confidence scores? Something we're accustomed to with machine learning, with some of the early developments in AI that have kind of gone by the wayside in favor of like vibes and just trust me, bro. And that's not necessarily going to work when you're talking to an SVP or a C-level buyer at an enterprise. So one thing that we've done at File AI, first and foremost, is we've brought evaluations into all of the data that we return. So we look at, is this data that we return to you present in the source text? Where is the citation? What is the reasoning we came to say, this is good, or this is maybe meh? There are shortcomings to that. One of the things is translation and transliteration. We're a proud Southeast Asian company. We work across Tamil, Thai, Malay, both Bahasa, both Malaysian and Indonesian. We work across English, Singlish, Chinese, the works. So having that element of our model saying, oh, I think it's right, but maybe not, that poses some challenges rather. But coming up with an activity that you say, this is a proxy for accuracy of my model, of my tool, and of my agent. And that allows you to speak very authoritatively, especially when you get that question of where are the confidence scores, how can I trust what you're presenting to me? And the last thing, and I believe this most passionately, recognize when LLMs aren't the answer. This is very much a lot of times kind of a square peg round hole thing with AI and large language models. Just throw it in the model, just use AI. Can't you fix it with AI? Right now in our classification engine, it works so well. So when we get a document, regardless of whether our system's seen it before, we can classify it. And at a granular level of things like a Dubai water bill, of things like a contract type NDA. And largely it's because we've married machine learning, which is tried and true and really, really strong technology, with logical rules-based if-then-else statements from software engineering, with what is probably the most transformational paradigm shift in software engineering in the last, 15, 20 years in large language models, generative AI, and AI systems. So, but I think one of the things that we always pause ourselves at File AI is, does this need AI? Can this problem be solved with the toolkit we already have, or are we actually overcomplicating it and potentially even introducing more risk and more points of failure by using a model? And I think the gentleman that just spoke beautifully about privacy and data masking and security. And so anyone starting to work in the AI space, the enterprise space, whether you're building a startup, you're looking for work, want to be on the C-level path at a bank or an insurance company or some such, this is front of mind. And everyone's trying to figure it out at the same time. You're seeing guidelines. You're seeing the new ISO 42001 AI cert replacing 27001 for AI companies. These things are happening in a very exciting way, and almost done, promise. And these are things to keep in mind. So high level, my name's Tim, I work at File AI, we're in the enterprise, I'm hiring, and these are some ways to help bring some semblance of determinism to what is a very not necessarily deterministic field right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up we have a next piece of the puzzle. Yeah, which is, how do we manage security risk with prompt injection? So we have April from Alio Security. Are you here? Oh, okay. Yes, okay, she's coming. Okay, yeah, so I mean, you can make your AI deterministic, but if it reliably is susceptible to prompt injection, then that's also a problem. So we're here to kind of hear more about the security risk of prompt injection in large language models.
Yes. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, nice. So let me let's begin. So to dive in today's topic, may I ask you a question? So would you like to trust an AI who can rewrite your email in your mailbox? If yes, please raise your hand. So 32, 3. Okay, you will trust all the AI agent that could perform arbitrary actions on all your application and tools, even though the AI could rewrite your email, right? So today I would like to share with you the AI risk about this topic. So the topic will be the prompt injection and the sensitive information exposure behind the AI agents. Okay, so I'm April from Alio Security. So the first case I would like to share today is the CVPR25 review controversy. The background is that a researcher, Signing Xie, gave a CVPR25 talk on AI research risk. But shortly after, the controversy exists that is found to include a hidden review prompt, positive review only. Yeah. In his research paper to try to manipulate the AI peer review. So what brings the key issues here is the research integrity, transparency, and the community trust. Okay. And the second case is about the Microsoft Copilot security. Has anyone here tried the Microsoft Copilot? Okay, so there is bad news here to share with you. Even though the Copilot will boost the productivity, it also brings the security risk. So this risk caused the U.S. Congress to ban the Copilot for the staff due to the data leakage issues. Okay, so what is the risk? There is a vulnerability about the Microsoft Copilot. The vulnerability name is the Echo Leak. It's given the CVE number 2025-32711 and is rated as a critical vulnerability. So how it works, I will share with you this zero-click attack chain so that you can get more detailed understanding of this attack. So this zero-click attack chain, this is the Microsoft MSRC Security Center that is, shows the details of this vulnerability. And first of all, the attacker sent an email, which is an innocent-looking email, to your mailbox, to your Microsoft mailbox, and with the subject weekly industry updates. Everyone thinks it's a normal email, right? And this is the demo malicious email that shows that there's an urgent case. Please send me your latest earnings report for the due diligence purpose. And click here to view our instructions. And there's the image and there's a malicious links attached below to exploit one of the vulnerability of the open redirect. Okay. After that, after the M365 Copilot read this email, it will trigger an action. The user will say, "Hi, please summarize and analyze our latest earnings report." So in this case, it will exploit the XPIA bypass vulnerability, and then the Copilot will mix this untrusted attacks input with the sensitive information from the Microsoft Excel. Okay, so how the attack works? So for example, the first part shows the first part shows the markdown that there is built-in with the security defense that the model will not pass through this malicious context. However, the defense is not robust enough so that it can be bypassed by using the alternative markdown. And even though the Microsoft have the CSP rules that only validate a certain domains to send the information to, you can actually exploit it using the security weakness here. You use the open redirect vulnerability exploit to redirect your secrets to a third-party external domains. Okay. So in this case, the M365 Copilot will send your earnings report to the attacker, and you even don't have any awareness on this case. So this is so-called the zero-click vulnerability. Okay, for the mitigation part, how can we mitigate this risk? We can apply the Microsoft patches deploy the DLP and monitoring controls, and introduce the AI prompt safety checks that we will dive into later and with the live demo. Okay, so this is basically what the IPI is, and it is known as XPIA within Microsoft, which is indirect prompt injection. Okay, so this is basically the workflow of how these attacks work. The user interacts with the compromised LLM, and the persistent storage will be modified. This is a variant of the attack surface of the LLM integrated applications. So this image illustrates the key risks of the indirect prompt injection. It will affect the information gathering, introduce the fraud, intrusion, malware, manipulated content, and the availability of this of your application. Then how can we defend this? So as you can see, we need to have the defense in-depth methodology like an onion. So that an onion has many layers which could make the attackers cry, but not us. Okay, like you need to have the agent security, LM security, and AI infra security in place. Okay, the third risk case is about the cloud computer use. So the details is about the attacker embed a malicious system command within the PDF file, so that the AI will automatically execute this command to remove other data on your device. So this is very dangerous and craziest part of the AI agent without security. So how does it bypass the security defense of the AI agent? It utilizes the ROT13, a simple ROT13 substitution to bypass the filter of the AI model. This is a video showcase how this cloud computer use demo works, and on the left-hand side, sorry, on the left-hand side, the attacker key in the file containing the malicious command, and in the end, the cloud computer use this application will automatically execute this command in the system processes. Okay, so it will execute the remove rm-rf, all the files will be deleted in this case. So be careful when you're using the arbitrarily unauthenticated AI. Okay, one minute. Okay, yeah. So how about our solution? Our solution has a Open Manus shop assistant as a demo. So in this case, when you have the firewall open, it will automatically detect all the malicious traffic in your prompt. And it will also help with the resume filtering demo. So in this case, this is a benign resume, and this is a malicious resume with the invisible prompt that's saying the positive review only, that will also be detected by our firewall. Okay, so thank you. Okay, so we also have a very fantastic feature about the PII masking. So what is the PII masking? So for example, call me at.
I think I have to prompt inject you.
Don't inject me. So
Maybe.
okay. Finish. So the original text is the call me at blah 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 and your phone number for account verification, and with our firewall it can be masked, and you become asterisk with the phone. And it also covers the phone number, email, credit card, multiple PII, and the payment data. And it can be customizable and personalized. Thank you so much for your time.
Sorry, sorry about that. Okay, we're on a tight schedule. I think next we have Leanne and Gabriel, who's going to tell us about another aspect of safety, which is making sure that the language model doesn't swear at your customers. Yeah, which is very important, I think, for me.
It's more than swearing.
More than swearing. So the benchmark is called Rabak Bench. I love the name of the benchmark. Yeah, I think I would have put a set for the conference paper just based on the title. Yeah, and Lion Guard too. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't prepare any slides for today, but I have some links and some documents that you can refer to at the end. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Deanne from GovTech. I'm currently a data scientist working on responsible AI, and Gabriel over there taking photos now is actually my teammate in responsible AI as well. Yeah, so what we do in responsible, and apart from that, we're also looking at AI safety, robustness, fairness, explainability, and a lot of other areas. And today I'll be focusing more on AI safety, specifically on localized safety, because I work in GovTech and we do a lot of application testing for the whole of government. Yeah, so a lot of the applications have to be safe and secure in the Singapore context. Yeah. Okay, so today I'll be sharing two items, both on localized safety. The firstly would be Rabak Bench, and secondly would be Lion Guard 2. So for some context, Rabak Bench is actually a benchmark for localized safety, and Lion Guard 2 is actually a moderation classifier, so it's a model for localized safety as well. Yeah, so to begin with Rabak Bench, I'll start with the motivation for why we actually built this benchmark. So so this is actually the link to our paper, our technical report on Rabak Bench. So before we started embarking on this mission, we saw that there was a limitation in localized safety evaluation, especially in low resource contexts. So there are studies that show that attacks in low resource languages actually are more susceptible, like LLMs are more susceptible to attacks in low resource languages. So languages like Singaporean Tamil, Singaporean Malay would be more likely to attack LLMs. And secondly is that LLMs and their safety classifiers tend to perform worse on low resource languages. So if it doesn't understand the language, then the performance will be worse when it's doing like annotations or labeling. Yeah. So that is why we embarked on building Rabak Bench, which is an evaluation benchmark for localized safety evaluations. And Rabak Bench consists of 4 languages in the Singapore context: Singlish, Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. How we build it exactly is, so I'll show you guys this is actually a screenshot from the paper itself. This is our methodology for how we build Rabak Bench. And we build it such that it can be like a more extendable methodology for anyone who wants to build benchmarks in a low resource context or like a culturally specific context. So the step 1 is to generate your training data or like your benchmark data. And what we did here was actually rate team. Like the core technology that we used here was actually to rate team existing moderation classifiers. So we did edge case discovery with automated guardrail rate teaming. So some of the guardrails that we attacked was another localized Singaporean classifier called Lion Guard, as well as like OpenAI moderation classifier, AWS Bedrock, and more. Yeah, and from there we get actually like a challenging set of false positives and false negatives that were actually able to bypass the moderation classifiers. So we collect all of these like different prompts that we passed into the moderation classifiers. And then we go to stage 2, which is like the labeling stage, where what we did was we identified the LLMs that concurred the most with human annotators using the alternative annotator test. So I won't go into detail on what this is all about because it's in the report and in the blog. But basically we selected the top 3 LLMs. Over here would be the O3, I think O3 Mini, Claude Haiku 3.5 at the time, and also Gemini 2.5 Flash. And with this, we did like a consensus voting on the LLM generated text. And then we move on to the stage 3, which was to actually translate the initial English or Singlish training data that we generated into the 3 other languages that I mentioned earlier, Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. Yeah, so what we did was actually do like a quite thorough toxicity-aware translation methodology, which is also detailed in the paper. Yeah, so here are some QR codes for you to access the paper and the open source benchmark. So we have a public and a private set, but you can take a look at the public set for like what the prompts in this benchmark actually look like. Yeah, and if anyone is building their own applications, feel free to evaluate their their application on our benchmark to see how it performs against like localized toxic prompts. Then I'll move on to LionGuard 2. So along with the same vein of like low resource languages and multilingual localized safety, we actually embarked on a mission to build a moderation classifier last year called LionGuard. So LionGuard is actually a guardrail to use in LLM applications to safeguard your applications from unsafe comments or maybe like toxic self-harm, sexual comments that may be found roaming online. Yeah, and LionGuard 2 is actually the second version of LionGuard 1. And what it does in LionGuard 2's extension provides multilingual detection. So on top of Singlish, which was in LionGuard 1, we now have Malay, Chinese, and Tamil in LionGuard 2. And we also refined the taxonomy from LionGuard 1 to include a more mappable taxonomy and also more separable and more refined categories. And the last one is that we improved the robustness and the performance of LionGuard. Yeah, so you can actually try out a demo here. So I really like key in the word because I know we don't have time. Yeah, basically like I key in like some Chinese, Singaporean, Singlish text, and you can see that these are the categories that it categorizes it into. So here I put like a self-harm statement. Yeah, this is also open source. I think anyone, later I'll show a QR code for you to access it so that you can try it out for yourself and actually like give us some feedback on how the model is performing. There's also a guardrail comparison tab here where you can actually see how a chatbot performs with LionGuard, without LionGuard, and also with OpenAI moderation. So you can compare how it performs like when you put in a localized text versus normal general English text. Yeah, and how we built LionGuard 2 is also, this is also taken from the paper. So step 1 was actually to curate a very small and focused data set. So what we did was we took the data set from LionGuard 1, we relabeled it with better LLMs and also refined the taxonomy. And then we added synthetic data to simulate chatbot inputs, as well as included general English data sets to improve the generalizability of the model. Yeah, and then we went through like a data cleaning funnel, and for the model architecture, we selected pre-trained embeddings and attached a lightweight multi-head ordinal classifier at the top. So basically it's like a super small, super lightweight model. And currently in this iteration of LionGuard 2, we're actually using OpenAI embeddings with like I think a 2 or 3 layer simple neural network. Yeah. So this is the QR code to the LionGuard 2 blog, where it has all the links and the results and the key findings from our experimentation. And also more QR codes here for the web and the QR code to our open source model, the open source weights that are on top of the embeddings that you can test it out for yourself. And yeah, I'll also give a shout out to our Hugging Face page where you can find other models and other data sets that we have created. So you can just like you can go to the hf.co at GovTech, which is like a really short URL, and you can check that out. Yeah. And also, last but not least, we also have a blog post, like a blog page, a Medium article of all the things that we do in AIP as well as responsible AI. So I recommend you to check it out if you want to learn more about any best practices in AI. Yeah, and I think to wrap up, I would like to say that our team at the Responsible AI at GovTech is hiring for interns and as well as for full-timers. So both are data science roles. If anyone is interested, you can reach out to me or Gabriel over there. Thank you.
Next up, we have Brandon from AI Singapore, who's going to tell us about reinforcement learning and tuning. I think this is the okay. So if the door is getting a bit crowded, so while he's setting up, can everybody in this section, right? Can you all lift up your chair and move in front like half a step, like half a chair in front? Yeah. Okay. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, my bad. It's ours. Sorry. The 35 kilo report. Okay. So there's one more chair here. If anybody want to sit,
Zoom in, but I will probably need to.
Very good. This one you need to set something. Recently, like
I'll just leave it here. Okay, move in front. Just make sure don't block the camera.
Oh, you change.
I can zoom
Okay.
in, but other than that, the focus.
Are you going to bring the camera down?
Down here. Okay.
Hello.
Close closer.
Time is ticking away. Okay, yeah, thanks everyone for your cooperation. There's really one more chair, nobody will paise it. Just sit in here. Yeah. Okay. Actually, technically we got one more over here. Does anybody want to sit together?
Okay. Hello everyone. Yeah, good to see a lot of faces here today. So my name is Brendan, and yeah, today we'll be talking about reinforcement learning and also some of these hot topics that we see and hear about in research a lot. So I think self-improving agents seems to be getting a lot of excitement. Small models as well, and of course like thinking machines. So yeah, first time giving this 60-minute presentation in 10 minutes, but I'll do my best. So yeah, just a bit about me. Essentially, just spent some time in research and also building my own startup. So I find like maybe a lot of these, there's a lot to learn from both communities. Two very different but very similar communities, highly motivated and great people. So like the previous presenters, usually want to start with a problem, right? Even though we're working in research. And I think the problem that we sought out to solve was, today we find all these computer use agents very useful, but they're not very adaptable and flexible. And an example of this is, internally we have a very painful HR process that we need to file HR claims, and a lot of us have been trying to just automate this. Yeah, it's very difficult. And we've been doing a lot of error analysis, and we actually noticed that it's not just an issue of the harness, meaning the software that you're running it with, but it has to do actually a lot with the intelligence of the models. And how we know that is, maybe we notice the models are unable to handle variability in receipt formats, but and they also struggle with kind of adapting to this Concur UI. So a lot of these like reasons kind of gave us this opportunity to come with hypotheses that it's probably an intelligence problem, and that's where research is with the research part comes in. Clunky Concur UI. We see here. So yeah, basically my presentation today is about one solution on how we try to solve these try to make these computer use agents a little smarter, and of course using one of the many techniques, reinforcement learning. A bit of a disclaimer here, RL is a big topic, so we'll only be covering like a small part of RL today, specifically using reward models. So I'll skip a lot of these introductions, basically more about, and basically start with intelligence. So I think a lot of people talk about reasoning, like reasoning is quite a loaded word nowadays, but I think reasoning essentially just means intelligence. Like everyone's working on like AGI, intelligence. I think it's synonymous with the word reasoning. And when we talk about reasoning, I think the most interesting thing about reasoning is it was an emergent capability that LLMs actually, that the scientists discovered. Essentially, when they prompted the model like, oh, can you think step by step? They realized like, hey, we didn't actually train the model to solve math, but wow, it's actually solving math problems even better than the best mathematicians. So this kind of like started this whole like intelligence explosion. Everyone was very much interested in intelligence, starting from like the text modality, and now we actually move on to multimodal, and that's where like the computer agents all come together. So yeah, before RL, I think one of the key techniques that people were using was this concept of self-consistency, whereby instead of just sampling once, you would sample 32 times. Because as we know, the model has a lot of internal knowledge, and you don't want to just give the model one shot to solve the problem. You give it like maybe 32 shots, and you can get a very good, much better outcome out of it. But reinforcement learning was discovered to be much more robust, because now we actually don't have to have this 1 out of 32 probability of getting a correct answer. We can actually steer it to really good answers in a more robust way. So yeah, and maybe I think some of you who have heard RL for the first time, reinforcement learning, just thought to share that why RL is also a hot space is because of this idea of AlphaGo Move 37, and why this is such an iconic thing in RL is because this was the first kind of significant sign from scientists that, wow, this machine learning model could actually make a move that a human may not have actually thought about because of sort of like the intelligence that they imbued into the models. So very significant event. So yeah, let's maybe talk about first a thought experiment. We talked a lot about like let's think step by step, and actually so one of the key tenets of training models with RL is this thought experiment. Like, can we actually steer or kind of verify the thought process of a machine learning model? That's quite interesting to think about, right? Because if we can actually control this process, then perhaps we can even control kind of the outcomes that we want to get out of the model. So that's actually the overarching storyline of why we are doing what we're doing today in RL. And in RL today, there are like mainly two types of reward models that people use to kind of like achieve this process that we just talked about, right? We want to kind of train these models to think like, kind of like the way humans think. First, we could either like steer the way they think in terms of their process, or we can kind of like give them feedback based on more of like the outcome. And previously, I think the first generation of RL focused more on outcome reward models, which, yeah, as the name suggests, focus more on the outcome. But now, more and more we're seeing ways to actually control the thought process. And that's where like all the thinking machines come. You know, we control the machine to kind of like think like humans. So that's why we will want to train something like a process reward model. Okay, we can skip this. So I guess then the question is like, how do we train or kind of tune these reward models to kind of like think like humans? I guess the overarching theme that I would like to share today is we do this by estimating the goodness of steps when training these models. And this is basically the core concept of the last 4 minutes that I'll be talking about, which is like, how do you estimate the goodness of steps when you use reinforcement learning? There are many ways to do this, but I think one of the most basic ways that people do this is this idea of like simulation. So what you can actually do is you start with one step and then you kind of like run multiple versions of it, and you see kind of like what the outcome is what the outcome of this particular step is. And based on this particular outcome, you can probably label it like, oh, this is a good step, that is a bad step. So that's basically the magic behind reinforcement learning. Very simple. You just want to know what the goodness of steps are, and you do this in a very systematic way. You kind of like assign a score to each step, and then once you have a score for every step, you kind of know what are good steps and bad steps, and then you train a model to predict them. So yeah, actually I'm already very close to the end of my presentation, because that's the core concept that I wanted to share today. So a little bit more about the systematic process. After you kind of like estimate the steps, which as you can see are just these probabilities here, you can kind of do something called a thresholding, and that's how you kind of label these steps as good steps or bad steps. So yeah, just very simple math, like how like most of machine learning is very simple math, but scaled up in a very non-simple way, a very simple math. So like in all machine learning, you want to do some sort of ensembling, which basically means you want to have multiple mechanisms to actually like do the same thing, so that it kind of evens the errors out of both techniques. So just now we used one way to kind of like measure the goodness of steps. This is the second mechanism that we were using to actually estimate this goodness of steps. And basically it's, yeah, agents of course. Yeah, that's Asian, that's Asian, this is also Asian, this is also Asian. So yeah, we basically use an agent to estimate the goodness of steps. And an example of this, as you can tell, is quite simple. So you just prompt an LLM with tools, which is an agent, and then it will go off and try to verify how good your step is. And this is a very important step because it can actually, this is the part where it kind of grounds it in reality, because you can connect it to tools like image analysis tool or like a web search tool. But ultimately, yeah, you're just asking the agent to help you out with the goodness of steps. And yeah, I'm already at my second last slide. So this is very expensive. Just want to share that it's very expensive. $80,000 was spent, but all in credits. So research credits, fund grants. So finally, the last thing I want to share is like, this is where the small models come in. So yeah, basically you will use these models, these very expensive small models, at inference time, where you could use like your Claude API or your OpenAI API, and then like you use it in tandem when inference at every step basically. And then the model will tell you is it a good step or a bad step, and that should get you a higher quality output. So yeah, these are some open questions that my group is working on. Verifiable environments is very interesting. So we're trying to build systematic ways to kind of like simulate reality, or some people might say they want to simulate like the workplace, and then you can use that to also give you good estimation of goodness of steps. So yeah, goodness of steps. And yep, to end off, just some inspiring photos from the internet. Thank you.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, I think I wanted Brandon to come and talk to us for a really long time, but he finally came. Okay, so at the start, we started this workshop, event, talking about very practical AI, like music, learning Chinese, and then like AI in general. The last two talks, right, we're going into, and then okay, we talked about security, safety. The last two talks we're going like into like research, like real research, right? The first one is next token prediction, by Michael.
The last time I couldn't find them. There was an error, I take into the so I realized it's because Python didn't accept the
Okay, so I'm Michael. I'm a research intern at NTU, and I'll be discussing what next research project we're working on, which is called Next Token Prediction. It's one of the that is used to train language models today. And some of the terms here might sound very complicated, but I promise it's completely understandable. And I wish I have $60 to motivate them, but it's like academia budget, So a bit of background, how do language models work? So first, text is segmented into what we call tokens. So for example, RNA, Llama will break it down into 5 different tokens, which you can see from the color coding there. And each of these subwords have a unique token ID, which is what is ultimately used by these models. Okay, and then with these tokens, models learn using next token prediction, which really just means models will learn one token at a time. So take RNA as the example. You'll learn RIB on, and then until it completes the sequence. So what's important to note here is when it learns the first token, RIB, it has no visibility into the next 4. Right? And when it learns on, it has no visibility into the next 3, which is a little bit weird from a human perspective, because you would think that RNA is a single coherent concept. Right. But over here, we teach language models to learn as 5 different entities. So the real academic debate here is next token prediction really optimal for language model training? So I'll give you like both sides of the argument, and then you can decide for yourself. So the argument for is that it clearly works, right? All of these models use next token prediction, and it has linguistic ability, it has knowledge, you can teach it a bunch of skills. But the argument against is that if you use this method, it creates some really weird behaviors because of tokenization, and it performs worse at certain tasks like those that require look-ahead ability. Okay, so this is like my personal take, which is more of a conjecture to be honest, which is that next token prediction works great and it is effective, but maybe it's not like the most optimal method to train language models. So what seems to be the most obvious solution is multi-token prediction, right? Which really just means instead of learning one token at a time, you learn multiple tokens in each step. And you learn that by adding what we call auxiliary heads, which are just like more stuff to the model basically. So back to the RNA example. So if you use a next token architecture, you learn these 5 tokens in 5 different steps. But in multi-token, you learn everything together, even though they are 5 different tokens. Okay, so it's found success so far. It's first, and all the rest is sort of like they kind of copy DeepSeek architecture, which is why they all have this like multi-token smell to it. Okay, so but the problem with MTP is that so far it's only been useful for pre-training, which, as you might know, is like super expensive, and it's not really clear whether it's really worth the 2% improvement. So you're probably wondering, why don't we just use this for like fine tuning instead, which is like some like technical problems with it, but the summary of it is basically fine tuning is much shorter, but because of that, it's like sort of not really enough time for models to take advantage of this like better setting sort of. Okay, so this is where our work comes in. We this is like the first work sort of that successfully used MTP for fine tuning. So we call it concept-aware fine tuning, and this is how it works, which I don't really want to go through. And we call it concept-aware fine tuning because we find that it works best for highly conceptual tasks. So think of concepts as like single entities that often span multiple tokens. So I'll give you like two main examples. The first is coding. Right? Programming languages tend to have these like esoteric phrases which tokenizes break it up into even more esoteric tokens. And multi-token predictions basically combines it back together when using this benchmark called human eval. Basically performs very well. Another case study is molecular generation, where we give a textual description of what we want the molecule to do, and then we get the model to generate the actual molecular structure. And there's some like concept component to it because molecular structures contain mini concepts within the entire structure. And again, performs really well. We tried it for a bunch of arithmetic problems, text generation, and even protein design. It's easy to use. You can try this yourself, actually. If you do fine tuning, especially with transformers, you just like import some functions, and it kind of just works. Okay, so this is the last slide. So to make it more relatable to you guys, there are two main directions for MTP. The first is in terms of applications. We find that use non-text modalities. So what does that mean? It could be like protein sequences. It could be molecular structures, and these are very difficult problems for models to solve right now. And we find that, at least in our testing, there's evidence that if you scale this up, it could be one of the. It's one of the ways to. It's one of the ways to overcome this non-text modality problem. Another thing is, so far, basically all models have used next token prediction. But now we know that we can use MTP for both pre-training and fine-tuning. So is it now time to shift to a more multi-token paradigm instead? Okay. Yeah, that's all. So that is the paper. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Michael. Usually they only start at 8:45, but the 8:30 bell is due to me. So last but not least, we have Prof. Alvin Chan from NTU, who's going to tell us about how we use AI in the biology space. And that's about as much as I can explain.
Okay, hi everyone. So thanks for the introduction. So my name is Alvin. I'm based in NTU College of Computing and Data Science, as well as the School of Medicine. So I started out as a bioengineer and then did full stack programming. I mean, back then without GPT, and then did my PhD in AI, deep learning, generative modeling, and then did my postdoc in the web lab. So now I'm going full circle using deep learning and AI to develop new medicine, right? So I'm gonna take you through a brief journey of one of the projects that we have worked on, and to really see how AI can make a real life impact in medicine. So before I start, who here has taken the mRNA COVID vaccine from Moderna, Pfizer, or BioNTech? Okay, great. So those who raise up your hand, you have a nanomedicine in your bloodstream before, right? So today I'm going to talk about this class of medicine, okay? And in short, so when you hear the COVID vaccine, you do hear the term mRNA, right? So mRNA vaccine. But essentially, there's also another entity that is even more important. So if you imagine mRNA as a passenger in the car, right? And the vehicle that transports this passenger into the cell, it's what to deliver the active medicine into your cells to execute its function, right? And today I'm going to talk about this entity, right? And in short, we call this lipid nanoparticles, annotation in this new field of medicine, right? Which we call RNA medicine in short. So the one huge limitation is that if you inject this medicine into a patient's bloodstream, most of it goes into the liver. And the reason why it goes into the liver is because this is made up of what we call lipid. Lipids are fatty compounds, right? And in the human body, liver is where fats goes to, right? So, you know, of course, if you eat a lot of fatty food, liver is also one of the organs that's implicated, right? So, when we use this class of medicine for other applications beyond vaccination, you know, there's not a lot of success because of this limitation. And here, we are using AI to essentially develop like a Grab app or an Uber for RNA delivery, right? In a lot of diseases, they are very organ specific or tissue specific, especially for example for cancer, right? If the cancer is in the lungs, then you want the medicine to go to the lungs instead of the liver, right? So this is why we care about this problem, okay? And the way we address this problem is both, of course, to use deep learning and AI models to address that. But one huge bottleneck in a lot of real-life application, especially in biomedical application, is the data set, right? And so we also set up robotic screening workflow so that we can generate data and scale as well, okay? And so essentially this is a very simple cartoon of what makes up a lipid nanoparticle. So imagine, you know, if you're driving a vehicle, the vehicle is made out of different materials, right? So you have glass for windscreen, you have an alloy for the chassis of the vehicle, you have rubber for its tires. Similarly, you have these different chemical types for these different components that make up this vehicle that transport the passenger, okay? And in a lot of times, what really matters is not just the material that you use, right? But also how much of each ingredient to use to make this lipid nanoparticle. It's like cooking a soup, right? You can say that I want onion soup, right? You use onion, pepper, water, and so on and so forth. But the amount of each of these ingredients matters as well. And here, in this view, it has been shown that the way you tune this composition affects which cell you can target as well, right? And so to layer that, you can think about the computational, the chemical search space, right? How big the search space is, right? To find the perfect formulation that can target a specific cell. And so what we did then is we play around with the parameters, and then we screen thousands of different formulation design in 2 different cell types in the wet lab, right? So this becomes our data set, and in short, we call it just a lens data set. So this is the more exciting part, right? So how do we build a model to model this complexity, right? The interactions between each of these ingredients to finally find out how effective it is. So we built a model called COMET for short. So, I mean, most of you probably have already used ChatGPT before, but essentially the T in GPT stands for transformer. So we use the similar architecture, but here, instead of word tokens, we are feeding in chemical molecular structure, right, as tokens in this model. And what this model does then is to infer what are the interactions, right, between these lipid components, right, with each other, but also we fit in the synthesis condition of how much lipids is used versus the passenger, the RNA, right? And what we do then is we train this model in a supervised fashion to predict how effective it is in delivering the payload to the specific cell. So long story short, we evaluate that model. It is able to predict accurately, retrospectively, but more importantly, we cared about not just whether it will do well in the particular data set that we created, but can we design new medicine, right, that works even better than what we have found in the lab. And this is what we do. And we look at 2 different aspects. So in what we call the lead optimization library. So in this case, this follows a very typical drug development process, right? Initially, the scientists would, for that particular application, and what scientists would do is that they would make slight modification to the drug candidate, right? In hopes that you can find an even better drug design, right, than version 1. And so this is what we did. So what we do then is that we look at the top performing formulations from our initial screen. We make small modification like changing the molar percentages of each of this ingredient within a certain bound, right? And we also swap out one of this lipid component with another choice, right? And what we do then is that we run, instead of doing screening all these formulations in the lab, we run it through the model. So we do what we call in silico screening, right? So we screen it with the AI model and to find formulations that are predicted to do very well. So this is what we call the lead optimized library. And we also look at what we call, okay, I'll cut the long story short, I'll go straight to the data for the lead optimization in the interest of time. So essentially what you see here on the right, those 3 formulations are the clinical baseline. So if you can see SM102, that is the formulation based on the recipe for the Moderna COVID vaccine. The ALC0315, that is a formulation based on the BioNTech vaccine. MC3, that is a less known, but also a clinically approved formulation out there. So the one in the middle, the lens hit, that's the original hit that we found in our screening of 3,000 formulations. Original hit version 1. And on the right, on the left, those 3 bars stands for 3 different variants that we have picked by doing in silico screening, right? So the higher the bar, the more effective it is in delivering the passenger to, in this case, an immune cell, okay? And in 3 out of 3 cases, find even better formulation with our deep learning model. We also tested this in mice to see whether it works in animals, and the clinically approved formulations in animal as well. So I'm going to end my talk by just previewing what's next, right? So the experiments that we've done here so far are done in what we call in vitro, that means they are done on cells. But what we really want to see are formulations that work also in living organisms, like in humans or even like in animals, right? So then the question is, how do we generate so much data in animals? So when I was still in MIT, right, I heard a talk by a startup who was working exactly on the same problem, and for them, and they were trying to use AI, right? And the way they approach this is that they screen different designs in months, and they do this one by one. So this is a very typical way to get data. 300 over months a week to get just 300 data points a week, right? And I mean, this is of course consuming a lot of resources, but questionable in terms of ethics as well. Like, do we need to sacrifice so many animals to get this data set? And so, what our lab does as well. So our lab is made up of like half AI scientists, half web lab scientists, and what we focus on is what we call high throughput science, right? How do we get more data per experiment? And in this particular case, we are interested for one animal, can we get a lot more data points from one animal? And the short answer is yes. And one example of a technology that we use is what we call barcoding. Okay, so with this technology, we are able to screen, in our case, we screen 70 over different formulation design in a single animal, and we're able to tell where it goes to in the animal, right? So we have 2 order magnitude more data per animal with our approach, and this helps us do our deep learning model training, right, with this huge amount of data. And the concept, I'll just preview very quickly how we did this, but the concept is based on barcoding. So if you go to a supermarket, and if there are 10 different kind of apples, how would the cashier know which apple you pick? You scan a barcode that is in the form of a sticker on the apple, right? So similarly, we barcode our different vehicle design, we pull them together, inject it into the animal, and we harvest the organ that we're interested in, and we scan the barcode to see what is present in the target cell or the target tissue, right? And this is how we do this, to screen multiple different formulations in a single animal, right? So, and of course, we've improved the screening so that it's more effective and more accurate and more sensitive with the current state of the art. So this is one that is just published just last Friday in our the work in terms of the comment model. So if you're interested, feel free to check out the paper. And this brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so in about 2 minutes, the library is going to start having an announcement saying that it's time to leave. But we have a bonus round. And we're also going to explain why there's a robot sitting among us today. But also after that last 15 minutes at 9 o'clock, everybody will be kicked out. So after this bonus round, everybody head straight to the bar downstairs. It's the Mukata X. Like we all hang out there, and that's where the networking session will happen. So we'll listen to Raj, who's going to tell us some very exciting news about the Gen. Okay, well, the Gen browser. All right. Okay, and then we'll talk about the robot. Okay.
Yeah, hi there, I'm Raj. I'm from the Gen team. Some pretty cool updates. We recently launched our model, Gen V1. It's currently performing really well on the simple QA bench. We actually are like at 91%. And it's crazy because it's a 4 billion parameter model that's fine-tuned on Qwen itself, Qwen 3. And we're trending on Hugging Face. We're like right here, yeah, below, yeah. So like thanks for your support as well. And with the number of downloads that we got, we actually received a lot of questions, which was that even though we train our model with like search parameters to make it really good at finding items, a lot of people did not have like, or have credits to like spend on say MCP servers like Exa or SERP APIs. So what we did was that we actually are creating our own search MCP. And the cool thing is that it's local. You don't have to pay anyone. It uses your own Chrome like browser as a browser. It'll browse as if it's you, and you'll get the data from that MCP server. And it's basically powered by our own extension, which will be launched soon. And yeah, so you could basically ask it to summarize everything. It has access to the internet because it's within your browser itself. It does not use any external API calls, and it can basically summarize articles, news, your meetings, so you can edit your Google Meet. You don't have to like pay someone else to like summarize your meetings for you. You get a free inbuilt tool that could be ran fully locally as well. Yeah. And basically while I was talking, I actually did a local search query, and the search MCP is exposed using the normal MCP tooling, if you guys are familiar with it. Oh shit, it's kind of small. But I asked kind of like where to get the best lapsense and because I'm like craving for food. And it sort of gave me these 3 items, and all of this search was done organically within the browser itself. It exists as a small extension here. You could ask it questions, you could I basically asked it to summarize today's news, like yeah. You could just ask it for anything and it runs pretty fast. And yeah, basically the cool thing about it is that we're enabling you to perform searches locally without having to pay external MCP providers. And yeah, this is a wait list. You can join it. We'll drop you guys an email once it comes out, so you could like build your own local tools if you want to, or use it to enhance your Gen or any other local app experience. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Raj. Okay, so I think Gen browser will be out very soon, I hope. It won't be out very soon. Okay, but please look out for it when it comes out. Okay, now we're gonna explain the robot. So while I'm talking, Jashan will prepare the robot. But basically, we decapitated a robot that we bought from Unitree, the Unitree G1, and this is what we found. Yeah, so if you decided one day, you woke up and you wanted violence, and you wanted to decapitate a robot, and this is kind of how you do it. We've kind of just like, this is not slides, this is just a Google Doc for like how we do it. Okay, so here we have Unitree G1, right? So this is like Singapore Zoo. I'm going to show you the animal. So this is the Unitree G1. This head right here is kind of made by us, right? So this is not the original G1 head. This is like a brand new head made by us. But this is how you remove it so that you can add a new head. So this is like open head surgery. So first you need to lay it back on this table. So standing down, and then you gotta like remove the front cover and the back cover. And then the Unitree has this very interesting like neck assembly and microphone array. So it has 4, but it's attached by a very, very thin ribbon cable, like over here. And if you remove it too roughly,